Good morning and Merry Christmas. At least if I counted right, this video should post on Christmas. I did not spend Christmas Eve making videos, and I am not going to spend Christmas Day making videos. That's time to spend with the family. So this is a few days before Christmas. I think this will post on Christmas morning. And today we're going to do kind of a fun little project, kind of a bonus on our countdown till Christmas. And that is a little Christmas gnome. These are actually inspired by some Scandinavian traditions. I believe they're referred to as Tomte or Nisse in the Scandinavian countries. And like so many things, they have become associated with Christmas, even though the legends didn't start out that way. I'm going to start with a piece of 1-inch square bar, and we're going to do a lot of this under the power hammer. These gnomes need a nice red hat with a long tail on it, very much like Santa Claus wears. So I've got a piece of 1-inch square bar heating up, and then we're going to go to the power hammer and put the hat on first, and then we'll do some facial features. Now, do you need a power hammer to do these? Of course not. Just plan to spend a little bit more time at the anvil doing it. And maybe don't do the little ball on the end of his hat if you're not comfortable trying to do that kind of stuff. These can take all sorts of different forms. This is just what I happen to be doing today. Now, I've done these as big as 1.5 inch stock, and I wouldn't even think about doing that without a power hammer, but you could. I'm just going to clean up the little ball on the end of his hat. You can certainly do ball end hooks this way too if you've got a power hammer. It's a technique I'm really trying to get better at. Then I want to clean up the little taper. This is a little bit chunkier than I had planned. But I don't think there's any right or wrong. So make this what you want it to be. So I'm pretty happy with that. This is going to get a lot of shaping before we're all done, but I want to do the facial features next. Now, these are very simplistic facial features. We're not trying to do anything too fancy. We are going to start with eyes. I have kind of a teardrop eyeball punch here. A round rivet set is very good for this. So it's just up to what you have. Try and get this to line up left and right. It does look a little bit funny if their eyes are not at the same height. This is just another one of those kind of caricature items that is not a perfect lifelike thing. So don't get too carried away thinking, well, that doesn't look like a Christmas gnome. It will when we're all done. So there are his eyes. Now we need to put in a nose, or actually a mouth. Or maybe I should say that we're going to set in a place for the mouth which leaves behind something we can pretend is a nose. It's all very confusing. I'm just using a set tool, just a square bottomed punch that is just for defining spaces and doing little step downs. I'm doing this in a V block so that I don't mess up the back of it. This is going to take a couple of heats. But you can see where this is starting to define a nose right here and a place that will be the mouth right there. I'm working in the smaller gas forge again today, which is just barely enough to heat this. It does it, but it takes a little while. So I'm kind of at its limit. But we will get this done. That's almost deep enough to be a respectable nose. I don't generally put nostrils in these, but I suppose you could if you wanted to. Then we're going to put an oval punch in for the mouth. Here again, I sometimes use a round punch. So you can see a lot of those facial features taking shape here. Like a nice deep mouth on them, it makes it clear what it's supposed to be. That's really all I generally do for the facial features on these things. Very simple, nothing fancy. But now we need to finish shaping his hat. I don't think his hat wants to just be straight up in the air like that. It needs to come over. But keep in mind that these typically just sit on the mantle. This will get cut off here, and it has to balance. If you put his hat way over to one side, it's going to tip over, so it's got to kind of curve back, and might take a little fiddling to get it to balance just right. So I'm going to start by pushing this off to one side. And then I'm going to roll it all the way over and let it sit next to his head here, I think. This is just up to what you see in your head. There is no right or wrong here as far as I know. And of course, the heavier the base, the more you can get away with as far as the hat goes. But that's kind of what I have in mind there. So the next thing to do is to let him cool and then cut the excess off. Well, here's our mostly completed little Christmas gnome. And I say mostly completed because his hat needs to be painted bright red. I don't use much paint on my ironwork, but it makes a huge difference in these. It makes them much more festive looking. And I believe traditionally the Tomte or the Nisse always had a red hat. So I'm going to do that and hopefully get a nice close-up picture of him before I edit the video. So hopefully tonight I can get him painted, get that done tomorrow, edit the video tomorrow night, and have this ready by Christmas morning. Janet did me a nice favor last night after we finished the Christmas gnome, and she painted his hat bright red for me. The paint we like to use on these is one-shot sign painter's paint. It goes on in one coat, and it doesn't really need primer on something like this, so it's really convenient. But of course you can use any kind of paint you want, but I think the bright red hat is the appropriate color for these things. This project concludes our countdown to Christmas. I hope you've enjoyed watching these videos. I know I've enjoyed making them. There are lots of other ideas that people suggested, so we're going to keep doing a lot of these as part of the normal videos throughout the new year. A lot of the videos that were just a little bit more involved than what I could do as Christmas videos we'll take a look at later. So if you made a suggestion, there's still a really good chance you're going to see it, just not as a Christmas video. Now these are something that I frequently do every year. I do one or two of them, and I just sort of add to my collection each year. And they all look a little bit different. I have different ideas. I use slightly different techniques, different eyeball punches, things like that. And it can become kind of a fun tradition to have a new one every year. And if you want to make multiples of them, they're great to give to the family. And then you give a new one each year so that they get to collect them as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you back in the shop in the next day or two.